Hi, I'm Hamish Chadwick, the brand guy. I'm a solo consultant helping people with their brands, and I'm looking forward to talking to Prosper today on the Prosperity Show.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show. I'm your host, Prosper Taruinga, and today we have none other than the brand guy himself, Hamish. How are you doing, my man?
Good, thanks, Prosper. Very well.
Absolutely. Well, the pleasure is all mine. I mean, with a name like the brand guy, people really need to know exactly what this guy does and things of that nature. Now, for those that are watching right now, thank you so much for tuning into the Online Prosperity Show. You do understand we bring you experts in their field. And as we mentioned today, Hamish obviously doesn't mince words when it comes to branding. He's known for saying, I don't care about your brand. And I'm not just saying this. Jump onto his website right now. You will see those words that say, I do not care about your branding, your brand. So it's your business that he's actually interested in. All right. So many of us go out of our way trying to create a brand and things of that nature. But Hamish has a different take to that. And if that doesn't pique your interest, I don't know what else will. So Hamish comes with over 15 years of experience, and he's helped businesses transform their brands from unremarkable to unforgettable. Now, he's the kind of brand strategist who actually believes that it's not about the colors, the logos, or the catchy slogans. It's actually about creating powerful connections, driving revenue, and standing out in today's crowded market. And if you're someone that is looking to go from merely competitive to truly distinctive, then Hamish is your go-to expert. So I encourage you to buckle up, scrap that logo order you just made on Fiverr, and let's dive into a conversation that actually promises to not just boost your brand knowledge, but also show you why working with Hamish might just be the best thing or the game changer your business needs right now. Now, let's just start with the obvious. Hamish, when I went on your website, the first words that I saw were, I don't care about your brand. Could you maybe explain what you mean by that and how this perspective actually benefits your clients?
Okay. Well, first of all, it's achieved what I wanted it to achieve, which is you were sort of taken aback by that, and you've mentioned it several times now. I just wanted people to sit up and listen and check it out like further, because it is a homepage, and let's face it, not many people, if you're not compelled to, click in and find out more from looking at a homepage, you sort of, depending on what your conversion tactic is, but I just wanted to jolt people with that because, and we'll go back a little bit further into why I got into this whole game anyway, but what I mean by I don't care about your brand is what people think brand is, and that is things like logos and colours and typefaces and things like that, and that's about it. And most of my clients who I've worked with, that they've come to me and said, "Oh, I want to adjust my brand," and they show me the brand, and I just sort of put that aside and I say, "Well, okay, what do people know you for? Like, what do you like to do in business? Like, what do you enjoy doing? Because if you don't enjoy doing what you're doing, and if we don't bring that out, then you're just going to attract, I don't know what you're going to attract." So to me, brand is about a fine balance. It is important to have good design. There's no question about that at all. Like in terms of graphic design, you have to show what it is you're trying to achieve. So it has to be a reflection of what you're trying to achieve. Sorry. So, but it's everything behind that which counts more. So it's that what I call the profitable truth. That's what I've always sought to find in all my clients is just that. It's what are you doing that's good? Like, why are people coming back? Why do people refer you? What differentiates you? Like, what excites you about being in a marketplace? Because, that's the great thing about being in business is competitions. I always say competition is a good thing because it gives you something to compare against. So, and that's the problem with, like treating brands as just a purely visual thing, because you reach parity so quickly. Like you anyone can have good design if you pour enough money into it, but if there's substance behind it, it's like I'm working with a client at the moment, and a lot of their brand is reflected in the proposal stage. So it's sitting down with a client, it's how you talk to them, it's the questions you ask, and that's what I'm helping them with. It's nothing to do with logos. In fact, I haven't changed their logo for that particular business unit at all, because there's nothing wrong with it. It's not a barrier to what they're trying to achieve. But what is complex proposals, 1,001 questions. They used to send boilerplate templates as their as the proposal content, and people just got bamboozled. Whereas now we're all about get them in, make sure that the meeting's catered. We've now designated a special car park. They put their name on the car park at the end of the car park, so they print that off. So that's part of the process of building up their brand, because once they've got the lead, it's great, but they're obviously going to go with this particular business. So they'll probably go and talk to 2 or 3 different people. So what we're trying to do is to position them in such a way that they seem to care and go that extra mile, because they were saying that. But I said to them, well, if you want to go the extra mile, how are you showing that? What are you actually physically doing to do that? And let's work on that bit. So that's why I say I don't care about brand. I don't care for what is usually seen as brand. You've got to have the substance. So,
thank you so much. If you hadn't explained that, I would have literally thought you actually do not care about anybody who comes by way of your website. So thank you so much for clearing the air. But that's so profound, Hamish. You just don't wake up one day and scrap what a lot of people think building a brand is all about, which is logos and like you say, typefaces and things of that nature. How did all this come together?
As in, how does it all come together?
Yeah, I mean, like, how did you come up with this concept? You would have been doing this for a while, like we mentioned, 15 years.
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, look, geez, how far do we want to go back? I mean, I started life as a photographer, basically. That didn't last very long. That was a hobby that I tried to turn into a job. And then from there, in the early 2000s, I got into doing web. Web was still taking off, and that was fun. But where I went though with that, which is what I really enjoyed with the web stuff, I was not a technical person at all. I had a business partner who handled all the technical side, and we worked with a number of different people to help build them. But I was always interested in the message. Like I was always critical about, what's on the homepage, how do we say it, what language do we use, even down to looking at, link names, because I realized that, you change the title of a link from, one word to another, or you might say get quote, or it might say, instead of get quote, it's, free stuff or something like, as in, I'm just thinking from my head here, but, just those little things. You could help clients really hone in on what their message is and how they needed to sell. And so that's where I got out of web into just doing brand, because it was just I could see, like, you go in and work on a website, but you look at the whole business and go, hang on, there's messaging here that you need to take this all into account. And then obviously, the early days of the web, it was, the website sits over here, and then we do our other business stuff over here, and our marketing's over here, where it was all a bit disjointed. But now, thank goodness, how people sort of see the web and obviously, social platforms as an extension of their brand, in terms of what do you need to say, or how do you need to say it to build up the desired image in order to attract the right sort of client. So that's where I wanted to, ended up, just doing brand consulting, because, you can cover the whole lot from top to bottom. And I mean absolutely everything from sales process through to digital marketing.
Absolutely. And you did sort of gloss over you being a photographer, but I think it is quite pivotal that you started off in that sort of realm, because a photographer freezes a moment, and it's from that moment that so much can be deciphered off of, and if somebody just takes a snapshot of a brand, depending on what angle or what place or position they come from, they could actually have a snapshot of what the whole business looks like. So would you say there is some sort of correlation to, because they say a picture says 1,000 words?
Yes, the analogy I would use is that with photography is photography is really all about light. You can't have a photograph without light, but let's not stray too far. Photography is really about framing. So when you think about what it is you want in the frame or what it is you want out of the frame. So in terms of a brand, it's critical. Branding is all about decisions. So it is very much about framing. It's what do you want to include within that frame and what you want outside of that frame. Because, when you've got, most markets are busy, everyone's busy, and you want people to sort of get an idea or a flavour of what it is that you're selling. Because I deal a lot with professional services, and people shop around and they look, and it's like, what do you want them to know if they haven't heard about you or haven't been referred and they've bumped into you? Like, what is it you're trying to say? And that's where the framing is critical. So getting the language right. And this is where I say, look, this is the thing, right? Like, the visuals are very important, because visuals can, in most markets, differentiate between, say, even like low cost, high cost, mid-range, whether it's something's a luxury item, whether it's a commodity. That's where the visual stuff comes into it, but it's all about that quick framing. And then from there, if they go further, like into the website, it's how are you framing what it is you're selling? So it all becomes critical. But that's the analogy with photography, if you want it that way. So.
Absolutely. Now, I know there's still a lot of people that are still scratching their heads and are almost about to turn off this video, because for them, branding, like we said, is all about the colors, typefaces, and things of that nature. And they want their brand to sort of stand out in a saturated market by just being the loudest, the most visible, and things of that nature. You see, I'm from Africa, and the African savanna, any animal should actually be camouflaged to the green and brown of which is the trees and the leaves. If an animal is outside of that color and it's very visible, we actually think it's poisonous. Would you say that can actually affect a brand that tries to be overly out there, and yet their inner workings are not, up to par?
So I think what you're saying there is, is it fair just to say if you want attention, you just start shouting? You can do that, but the problem with that, and that's why I say I look for the profitable truth. Which, what I mean by that is, I don't like to make things up. Like, you've got to have an element of truth in a brand for a small to medium business, even large businesses to an extent. But you get so many moving parts, but you've got to be able to back up what you say. So even if you are shouting, if what people see doesn't eventuate in the product that you're selling or what they experience, it doesn't matter how loud you shout. And so most of my clients don't shout. I've never sort of got them to that point where we do that. But what we do is, I do like making people uncomfortable with good taglines. Like, language is very good. Again, language is, you've got to lead with language with brands, because that's where people start to see, they start to read, or they start to hear. And that's where you can shout, just by being different. And that's the critical bit. You can be different, but you don't have to shout. Like, you don't have to have wild colors. It's like my website. It's pretty, it's not that exciting really, but with the text, you can say something quite loud. But as long as you can back it up, like I'm doing now with you.
Oh, absolutely. I like that, because the way you've got so much white space that really lets the words, pop out. And especially that's the reason why it really stuck with me. That's the words that say, I don't care about your brand. But most brands are just designed to appeal maybe to the masses and things of that nature. But you actually argue that branding should instead challenge and engage your audience, and you've done that pretty well with that statement hook there. Now, have you done this and it's actually worked on other people, or is it just maybe it works on a branding company because so many people are afraid to call out and maybe say, hey, I don't care about your website, I actually thought about that before I came on here and said, could I write that on my website to say, I don't care about your website, but I care about the business behind the website.
You could, and that's the thing. If you listen to your market, which you would, being in this sort of space, again, like, all I wanted to do was just jolt people that were maybe shopping around for a logo, because I'm not really interested in just doing a logo for someone, because that's only really 20% of the story. 10% of the story is the logo. It's everything else that sits behind that, in terms of what's the quality of the product, how are your sales team talking about you, how how, all your delivery partners, how are they in tune with your brand? Because once you get all that right, then that symbol might not even have to change. Like you might have a secondary concept change visually, but you might not have to change the logo. So the logo, brands are a tool, and that's the other reason why I've said, I don't care about your brand. It's because if you think of your brand as just a logo, well, sure, let's change that. What's going to happen? Probably not much. I mean, having said that, though, as another strategy, like if you really need to tell people that you have shifted, like if you've had an image problem, like let's just say something really bad has happened in your business, or you've had a shift of management, or you've gone, oh my God, that product was, rubbish. We'll get rid of that, but we need to tell people that we've changed. The easiest thing to do is if it's a major thing, change the logo, because that will jolt the market's attention. That is a strategy in itself, but outside of that, changing a brand is really more about the structural side and all the supporting material that goes along with it. So yeah.
See,
I have got examples like I can, what have I done this year? There's some of the taglines I've developed for clients. Like they've been a bit shocked. Wow, that's a bit out there. But I've said yes. But if you the way in talking to you and learning about your business, this is where you need to position yourself. So I've got a client who's an engineer, and the tagline came up for him. He's like structural engineer. So for most people think engineering, oh, boring. It's just this. It's very cold. It's very dry. But in getting to know him, he's very much in tune with people's design of the structure of their house in terms of the livability side. So all of a sudden it's like, oh, hang on a minute. This is not just engineering. This is consulting on a whole nother level as part of the engineering. So, his tagline is, engineering for the lifeblood of design. And people apparently, well, they've told him that they absolutely love it because it is exactly what he does. So, again, profitable truth. I'm not making it up. It sounds a bit out there, and it is, it was a bit uncomfortable, I guess, for him for a minute. But then when I sold it to him, I said, look, this is exactly what you're doing. So let's not make it up, because I hate brands that do that. You see some brands like people that use the word quality and professional, that sort of stuff. So how do you define that? Like you've got to define what that means, because you get parity so quickly. If everyone's professional, what else is there? And that's what I'm looking for. What else is there? But do it in such a way that it's not going to repel people, because they think, hang on, what is that? Because you've got to be very careful. It's a very fine balance between being out there and being misunderstood. You've got to have that overlap. And once you get that overlap, the brand starts to work for you. You can start attracting people to go, oh, I get that, or I want to see what's in there. I want to check that out. So that's what you want the brand to do.
Absolutely. And just being honest makes it easy for you to always be, you don't have to change your ways to suit different clients, just depending on what it is that you want to bring out to the marketplace. And half of the time when people look into branding, it's usually not really at the start, because at the start they just want to get numbers on the board. But it's usually when they're either scaling quickly or they're starting to face competitive sort of pressures, and what they are hoping the branding exercise, according to them, will probably put them in a whole different running with whatever competition they're facing. What are some of the common mistakes that you see businesses making when they're at these high stakes situations or decision making times?
Yeah, I think probably the most common error is to be too conservative. That's really I'm often pushing it's okay to come out with some wild statements, because let's face it, marketing can be fun. Like marketing is not all we've got to make sure we're doing 100%. We've got to not offend anyone all the time. If you're not offending anyone, well, sort of go, hang on a minute, what does that mean? If you're not getting that, so if you're not getting a response, then something's wrong and you're not doing it right, because that's again the goal of branding, is to attract and repel. But for most businesses, it's to attract. Because I have this all the time. You have people that say, "Oh, I'm sick of dealing with the tire kickers. I'm sick of the people who've only got $100,000 budget. I'm sick of having the people that only want this one thing done. I want to attract these people." And so I say, "Great, okay. Well, then what can we do to stop that?" First of all, is stop being so bland and stop being being everyone, being everything to everyone. You've got to make a decision, and when you get clear on how you can make those decisions, that's when you start to frame everything and go, right, if in repelling that audience, we maybe need to come in and be a bit brazen and say, hey, we are the right company for you if you've got $200,000 plus to spend on X, whatever X is. You might think, oh no, that's gonna, what about those people? You say, well, hang on, what people? They're the ones that you said, you just told me that, you're not really interested in dealing with, and there'll be someone else out there who can help them. So we just want these people here. So it's about getting that focus, and that's what branding gives you, is the opportunity to get really focused on that. And the thing is, people don't get offended. Like, I mean, like the word, like I've always used the analogy, it's an old one now, but like the company Virgin. I mean, what a ridiculous name. I mean, it's a ridiculous name, but it did what it had to do back in the day. I think Branson was trying to jolt, his image was always to be that person that was waving and out front, and it helped. But now it's kind of a bit conservative, really, because it's just become a passe sort of brand in that sense. The name, like, it's become part of the vernacular that no one questions that word, but on its own, it's quite wild. So as a small business, you can be doing the same sort of thing. You can be doing something which is going to get attention, and you don't have to spend like all this, like you were saying before, with marketing. Like, you don't want to rely on platforms to try and get you in front of people. Maybe it's something else in your brand that people are interested in sharing or talking about or remembering. That's the other thing too. So yeah, I think the common pitfall, I bring it back again to, is just don't be afraid to be a bit outlandish when it comes to brand and message, because you can always change it, but being too conservative is not going to get you anywhere half the time. So
I quite like that. And you keep referring to profitable truths. I think it was Avis, was it? The car rental that was second in line from Hertz. And they and they literally told everybody, we try harder because we are second place. They didn't try to go for first place. They actually went for the place that they were in the marketplace. And people actually appreciated that honesty. And I think I noticed on your website that you mentioned that being competitive only puts you on the playing field, while being distinctive is what actually makes you more memorable. And I remember that because even back home in Zimbabwe, Avis was the number 2 rental company, and we were like, what do they call it, the number 2? And there were jokes around being number 2, but that defeats the whole purpose. Now, how do you define distinctiveness in a brand, and what are some sort of practical ways that you can create that for your clients?
Okay, that's a good question. I think, first of all, when you get to, when I work with a client, you get to understand the market, because if you want to draw 2 lines, so you've got competitiveness. I mean, anyone that opens a business, you get an ABN, call yourself whatever it is, and say you do, let's just call it building. You want to be a builder. I mean, obviously, you've got to have a builder's license, but anyone can go out and get an ABN and say, hey, put a sign on the door, I'm going to be a builder. You're competitive, because you can, as long as you can hammer some nails and whatever, but as long as you can prove that you can build something, you're in the market, so you're competitive. To be distinctive above that is to look at understanding what's going on in the market. What is everyone else doing? So if you're looking left and right, and you go, oh yeah, we're all builders here. But if you want to say charge more, if you want to do specialized high-end projects, if you want to like really ultimately scale that sort of a business, you'd have to be distinctive somehow. So working with a client at the moment, and one of the things we've worked out to be distinctive in the market is how I think I mentioned this before, is how they deliver proposals. And so now we're delivering proposals via electronically it's basically a web presentation, because we've figured that in their local market, because they only deal in a particular area, no one is doing this at all. And the other thing they're not doing, I'm not going to give you any trade secrets, but they're also, as part of that process, going to look at other houses in the area that have been renovated and the values of that real estate in terms of what the value, how that value is increased after the renovation. So normally people are very honed in on what they're doing and what they're delivering, but what they're now doing is saying to their customers is, hey, we take a broad look. Yes, you're going to drop a lot of money into this service, but hey, here's some other things, in doing this is the value proposition that we're offering. So it's not just about doing the thing, it's about what that's going to create for you financially as a whole. So again, that's how they're going to get distinctiveness. So making sure they're staying above that competitiveness line.
Absolutely. And half of the things that then happens when a brand becomes distinctive is they are in a in a league of their own. And being in a league of your own to some people equates to being outside of your comfort zone. And so many people are not comfortable being outside their comfortable zone. So your approach to branding actually obviously involves honesty and a bit of pragmatism,
Yep.
which some clients might actually find challenging, or we've always done things like this around here. Now, how do you sort of help people to be comfortable, especially when you're telling them, hey, I need you to literally be different to everybody else?
Well, it's a process of selling them the idea. I mean, that's a lot of what we do in this. All of us do, or hopefully, I know I do. I mean, you've got to be able to sell an idea. I mean, the thing is, when you're looking at a company and you get to understand it. I mean, my process is I talk to suppliers, I talk to clients, I talk to staff. Like I get a really thorough understanding of the business and build a picture that a customer would have based on the dealings that they would have with all these different people. One of the listed companies I work with, I mean, I spoke to people around the world, and formed this massive picture, and then went back to their, CEO and said, look, you say this about the business, but this isn't true. It's X. So it's more. But he was very uncomfortable with that because he's like, well, hang on, we've got to show this. And I said, no. We've got to focus on these elements here because that's actually what's going to make money. Again, can bring it back to that commercial reality and we'll get to a smaller business because listed companies are a bit of a thing. But when it comes to a smaller business, though, it's really, selling the idea and then testing the idea. You can always test it. I think most of my clients, I'll do things like I'll be cheeky, and if I've come up with if I've come up with a tagline I know is going to work for them and some position that I know is going to work for them, I'll do things like I'll put it on a t-shirt and send them the t-shirt, and then they'll open it up and they'll oh my God, look at this. This looks really good. I said, yeah, see, you like it. So that's all part of that sales process. There's a number of different things you can do.
Cool. So Hamish, one of the interesting things I also read about while I was, looking you up is you've got this ability to transform a company's intellectual capital into intellectual property. Now, first of all, what's the distinction between the two, and why is it important in today's market that people have these as brand assets?
Okay, well, we can sum up both as, I mean, obviously, intellectual property is something that is tangible, whether it's on paper, it's an idea, but it's presented in such a way that you can either give it to someone, email it to someone, it's a book, like that. That's intellectual property. Intellectual capital is basically what's up here. And also, in terms of looking at a company from a brand perspective, intellectual capital is certain ways of working. They might have processes, and that's same for a service-based business. They might have a particular way of working with clients that is unique to them and that they've built up over many years, or they've come into the market because they've got a good idea as to how to help people. The way I help people utilize that to make it a commercially viable thing to sell is often to come up with sub-brands, or what for the audience's sake, like a sub-brand, like I did it the other day. A client came to me and said, we want to start give money to charity based on the choice of the applicant that's come in to use our service. And they've got 3 charities they want to use, and they had a name for that name for that service. And because they're a new brand, I said, great, this is a perfect opportunity to package this up as like a product for all intents and purposes on the website. So this has got its own page. I've designed its own little logo, which is complementary to the primary brand, but is obviously a standalone thing that they're offering, and I put a little trademark on it. And so it sounds funny talking about it like this, because really when people come across this and they look at it, they go, oh, that's a real thing. I mean, it's just a process they go through, but it was their idea. They've got a particular way of going about this. They've got a particular flavour that they've put on why they're doing this and the 3 charities. So to package all that up and to call it the thing, they call it Share the Love. It's very simple. It's not necessarily something you could trademark necessarily, but in terms of turning intellectual property, that's certainly an example. Another client I'm working with had so many different ideas that were sprung off the central business that we've ended up going from 1 brand to about 4, because for different audiences. And so that, again, a lot of intellectual capital, but he was about to go out and start selling, widgets here and pineapples over here, as an example, just to keep them private. But I said, no. These are totally different audiences with different needs, and they'll be comparing your thing with a number of other strong players in the market. So if they come back and do research and find your primary business, they're just going to think, hang on a minute, this is a bit weird. So let's take all that intellectual capital that you've got, those ideas, those processes, and let's give it its own frame. We frame it in a particular way. So it's got its own website, it's got its own name. So I develop the name, develop the brand, develop all the language, the approaches, help them with sales process, and that's doing very well over there on its own. So that gives you an idea as to the distinction between the two that I come across.
Actually, I think I quite like that, because so many people, when you're too close to your business, you might think that the services are all the same, but they're completely different, when the customer is looking for them out there. And half of the time, everything is happening so fast. So having to maintain yet another website for a small business is like, yet another thing we have to log into. And in this fast sort of changing world where that product now has to have its own social media or its own influencers, its own life, going out there, a lot of businesses would feel the pressure to keep up, and they'll just want to morph everything into just one basket. How do you then guide the clients to then build this brand strategy that's obviously adaptable, sustainable, but yet it still stays true to their, core values?
Oh, okay. Well, I think there's two things there. If you want to stay true to your core values, in the sense that it might be difficult to run two websites and two brands, it's a case of, if you can also, and this is the other thing we've got to look at, is how that's resourced. I mean, if it's not impossible, but it's difficult to resource, then maybe you should just stick to your core brand. This is the thing. So if this person or company I've just mentioned before, we've now gone from like 1 to 4 brands. They've got the resourcing. They've just had to redeploy people in certain areas, and then obviously one person might look after 2 things, and that one person looks after the other 2 things. So they've managed to just juggle what they already had, so no one is sort of run off their feet. So it works. But if you're like a solo practitioner and you've got 2 distinct markets, I mean, this happens. I mean, I did that. I mean, I gave up web years ago because I just couldn't put all the energy, split my day between doing web and brand, because there's 2 totally separate things. So I work with a good partner now who I can, help them understand what we're trying to get across with the brand, but everything else is handled by them. So, you've got to be really careful about how you manage your time. So again, I'm talking about time management now and resourcing, but again, that's a brand question as well, because if you cannot service properly that brand and the audience that you're trying to pick up for that new brand, well, then you're going to come unstuck, because you're going to get a bad rap, or something's going to happen, something's going to fall over. So it really becomes a resourcing question as well as a branding question.
Now, usually when a business is torn between maybe the thing that brought them into business in the first place, and then they have to add on yet another brand, a lot of people are usually afraid they might lose their original customers. And obviously customer loyalty is a common goal for a lot of businesses, because they feel like the first keys, the first people that bought from them are still going to be buying from them in a very long time. Yet you actually argue that loyalty is fragile and is often driven by convenience. If people can buy cheaper, better, faster somewhere else, they will definitely go out and do that. Now, how do you sort of create branding strategies that maybe encourage real loyalty rather than just transactional repeat business, which is what the internet has sort of created for most companies?
Good question. Yeah, thanks for reminding me about what I wrote there, because yes, that it's good, isn't it? I forget some of the things I write, but yeah, loyalty is fragile, because a lot of the time we can't confuse loyalty with convenience, because it's like, say, I don't know, I mean, everyone's got a Woolies and a Coles usually within a certain distance, and it's like, oh, why do you go to them? Oh, I'm very loyal to Woolworths. It's like, really, are you? What happens if that's shut? Are you going to go to the next one in the next suburb, or are you going to go to the Coles because it's next door? So it's very it's a fickle thing. Whereas, and look, they're a good example actually, because really both of those stores, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, have got parity. Like they're very similar. I mean, they have price wars of different things every now and again, but really, what's the experience? I mean, I know Woolies has got their Metro brand now, which I've been into one of those, and it's a little bit different, a little bit, seems a little bit more high end. But really, you've got to be thinking about the customer and the customer experience, and that could be anything. Like if you've got an online store, it's what's the experience from entering the site to leaving, making a purchase. How you're making it easy for people. What's your follow up? What are your sales team like? Are they friendly? Like, are they actually trying to get to know customers, service businesses? So it's not about so much focusing on the loyalty side. It's about how you're going to really add in some value, and that's what I work with clients on a lot of the time, is how can we do more of the good things that you're doing in order for people to recommend you and they come back. So rather than focusing on, say, like the loyalty, like coffees and coffee shops have loyalty cards, it's like, I mean, I don't bother with those things. I mean, if I like coffee, I'll go back, or if I like the experience, I'll go back. And that's the point. The card, if I can remember, is a bonus, but I'll still go there. So, and that's the point. They've spent a lot of time making sure that experience is good. So that's the image management side of it, is to make sure you covered all those bases. You're looking at your behaviour. So the behaviour aspects of brand, you're looking at the visual aspects, you're looking at the verbal aspects, so the whole, like, what I call the brand mechanics, it's all got to be working and pushing towards the ultimate goal, which is, what do we want to be known for?
But you would notice that half of the things that you're talking about there are a labor of love. Like there's a lot of work that goes into that experience, instead of the marketing department just coming up with, yep, here's the brand, here's the logo, here's the things that we've created, that's it, branding is done, and things of that nature. Now, for those people that want to really embark on this sort of journey, what sort of words of advice would you give to someone who really wants to enhance their brand so much that the customer starts caring about their brand?
Well, first, you've got to look within yourself. Like, you've got to look deep. I mean, that's what I've been doing with clients for years now, and it works. Is you, rather than just look at it as an exercise. I've got a client at the moment who I was referred, and I sat down with him. I started asking him all these questions, and he said, "Oh, geez, the other day I came out of a meeting, and he said, geez, there's a lot to this, isn't there?" I said, "Well, yeah, there is, because if you want to do it, properly, we've got to cover a lot of bases. Because if you want to get anything out of this, and this is the thing, right? If you want the branding exercise to actually bring you profit, and if you want to actually do something for your business, it's not just a case of redoing the signage on your car." Because, I mean, that's another thing too. Like, people don't like what they are selling. Like, if they look at their logo and go, geez, I designed that myself 10 years ago, that's a bit, you look at it and go, yeah, well, look, if you don't like it, that's one thing, but you've got to be able to get something out of the process moving forward. So you've got to dig and work out, first of all, what are you in business for? What do you like doing? Because really, any sort of marketing attracts attention. Well, it should attract attention. So what sort of attention do you want? They're some of the key things you've got to look at, and then work out what it is you want to build. I mean, this is an opportunity. Like, get a blank sheet of paper and go, what do I actually want to, be in the world, and what do I want the business to be in the world? How do I want it positioned? Then you work with someone like me to go, right, this is how we're going to do it. This is what we need to do. These are the actions. These are the certain behaviours that we need to start looking into and investing in terms of what you need to be doing on a daily basis, weekly basis. Then you look at making sure all your marketing matches that. You look at your language, so make sure that is going to attract. And then you can then get this strategy that you can sort of clearly see on paper and go, right, now I can work with a marketing team to push that and manage that and push it further, like on an ongoing basis. Because that's the other side of the branding issue as well, is that you've got to be really clear as to what it is, and then you can work with third parties. The worst thing you can have is if you don't understand your brand and you don't know what it is, that you go to a web person and you go, I need a website, and they go, oh, okay, great. What do you want? Oh, well, we sell these. Okay, great. And they'll go away and do their thing. And what they're actually doing is you've just given them the responsibility to build your brand. If you're not giving them a clear brief, then they will do what they think works. And if they're a reputable firm, or they're savvy, they will help. But a lot of the times they'll just do what they think without, much, if you're not giving them any input, and then you'll end up, your business goes in that direction. Or, you employ an advertising agency. Oh, well, what do you just want more customers? Great. Okay, well, we'll take what you got, and you start going in that direction. Whereas if you make sure that you understand and you can communicate what brand is to you and what those values are, then you can start, building out properly. So it all starts with, the business owner usually.
Fantastic. Now, obviously, with your 15 years experience, you've come across a lot, and you've actually been described as a rapid response strategist who's designing campaigns or solving problems for clients in real time. You know what that made me think of, Hamish? Have you ever watched in the movies when, there's this, I don't know what they call it, this a very valuable member of the soldier, maybe he's in the Marines or something like that, and he's maybe sitting in a beach in Thailand, or he's sitting in a beach in Bali there, and the business is at their wit's end, don't even know what to do next. And then the intern just slides in a business card, and then it says the branding guy, and then the CEO looks at the business card and says, yes, send the chopper. So you are the send the chopper guy, right? Especially when it comes to the branding side of things.
Always happy to get on a helicopter, Prosper. That'd be great.
Well, there you go. The branding guy is being send a chopper there. So if there's a business that's at the wit's end and they don't know what to do with their branding, how do they send a chopper? Where would they find you on the internet?
Oh, well, find me on my website. That's the easiest thing. And then flick me an email if you want to have a quick, always happy to have a chat and to see how we can perhaps work together if that's the case. But always happy to chat about brand because, it's such a fascinating, diverse subject, and it really depends on what sort of business. Branding is different to different businesses and different sectors. So it's,
All right. So obviously you've been in this game for quite a while, and obviously over 15 years. Things have changed, and now we are sort of at the cusp of AI or artificial intelligence in this role. Do you see it taking over like what people are predicting, or we're still going to be needing people, especially when it comes to branding?
Very interesting question. My position on AI when it comes to branding is sure, it can be used for a lot of the day-to-day tasks. So, for instance, if you've got a whole lot of like dot points on what differentiates this product and you want a statement to summarize that, sure. But when it comes to all the top level stuff, the thing with AI is not, it's not creative in the sense that it cannot create something that doesn't already know. And I've tried it. Like I've actually used AI and I've said, hey, I've punched in all my data and said, come up with good tagline, come up with a great tagline, a snappy tagline, or left brain thinking tagline. And the rubbish that it pours out, I've never, ever, ever got it to give me anything that had any sort of, it didn't have the right emotion. So at the moment, I'd have to say, AI is not creative. You still need to work with people. And that's the other thing too, you've got to be really careful, like things like Canva, great tools. But again, unless you've got a designer that is working with it, and even then they wouldn't use Canva, they'd use something else, you're still getting that parity because you're just selecting, unless you're creating something, you're selecting something that someone may have already taken. So you've got to be careful. I mean, if you've got a business which is highly you've got a highly commoditized offering, maybe that will work. But for a lot of clients, they come to me and say, "Oh, I had a bit of a bash in Canva." You have a look and you think, I can see it's working, but is it working hard enough? Usually not. And that's where there's got to be a balance. You've got to be able to have that creative input, and then use those tools as what they are for. They're not they're tools. They're not going to save you. They're not going to save the day. They're not going to be able to push out a highly effective brand. But in terms of brand management, no worries.
I also noticed you're not only just working with businesses, you also volunteer with PCYC. How does that sort of integrate with the work that you're doing right now?
Oh, I mean, it gets me out of the office. I've always done some sort of volunteering in some capacity, and I teach people how to drive at PCYC, so I help disadvantaged or people that don't have access to vehicles. We help them. There's a whole team of us. There's a PCYC breaking the cycle.
Absolutely. And then you get to see the companies that are not branding themselves well. And then the next thing they know is they're receiving a message. Hey, listen, I don't care about your brand, but you can be better. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, Hamish, I can't thank you enough for the time that we've spent on the call today, and especially you sharing all these invaluable insights into the world of branding. I think we've actually learned more to a brand than just a logo or a slogan, and it's all about standing out. Yeah, thank you. And standing out and creating real impact and connecting deeply with our audience. Now, for those that are watching right now, if you want to revisit some of the brilliant points that Hamish has shared, I will definitely put the links in the show notes below. And I also encourage you to share this episode with, somebody who's struggling in business. It might just not be an issue with their logos or, the typefaces. It could actually be a brand repositioning that they might need. And Hamish is the brand guy to help them with that. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more episodes that are filled with insights to power up your business and brand journey. Thank you once again for joining us on the Online Prosperity Show. Until next time, bye for now.